everyone. We want to welcome you today to the We Are Flora Pearl podcast. I am your host, Latasha J. Humphrey, founder of the Flora Pearl Foundation Incorporated. In a moment, we're going to jump into this amazing podcast. But before we get started, we want to let our audience know that this podcast is being brought to you by the Flora Pearl Foundation, where our vision is bridging the gap, building a legacy. Our mission is that we are a 501c3, community-focused nonprofit mentoring organization, building healthy relationships and partnerships between women and girls through education, community service, networking, unification, and career planning. Our inspiration is Flora Pearl Humphrey. She was my paternal grandmother, and although she passed away in 2001 of a massive heart attack, what she taught me and my family was about faith, family, and community. And that is where I draw my inspiration from. Now, audience, I have the pleasure to introduce to you she's a beautiful gem, and she's one of my amazing friends. We met within the last few years when we worked for the same organization. And she truly has this peaceful presence, and I often enjoy being around her when we work together. She is fun and very bright, intelligent, beautiful, and a go-getter. She is a lover to all things living, in my opinion, and desires to make an impact in all the things that cross her path in such a positive way. So I salute her in this moment. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Rachel Ahrnsen. Hi, Rachel. How you doing?
Hey, I'm wonderful. That was so sweet. I love hearing good things about myself.
Yeah. Awesome. How you doing?
I am wonderful. I'm really happy to be here with you.
Good. I'm happy to have you. And it is truly an honor to have you with us. And so I just welcome you on behalf of our audience. And if you would, just briefly go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. So right now, career-wise, I'm the Director of Natural Resources at Red Mountain Park here in Birmingham. And I also manage the Sims Community Garden over in Edgewood. And up until recently, I also worked at the Pepper Place Farmers Market on Saturdays running the info tent. So I had way too many jobs. And I am engaged to my lovely fiance, Kurt. And I come from a big family. I have 4 younger siblings.
Okay.
And I love everything outdoors. And I love to be creative. And I love the city of Birmingham.
Cool. Awesome. And so we're going to jump right into one of your loves, which is truly outdoors, but the natural resources, definitely. And so I wanted to know, when did you fall in love with natural resources, and kind of when did that love affair begin, and why that career over others?
Sure. So I think I fell in love with the outdoors pretty much as soon as I could walk.
Okay.
And I was very fortunate. My family, when I was about 8, we moved into a house that was surrounded by a forest.
Okay.
And so I would spend my childhood just running around the woods, turning over logs, building leaf forts, climbing trees. And so I was really blessed to have a childhood like that where I got to spend a lot of time outside and really appreciate the outdoors. And my family, since we had so many kids, they were always looking for low-cost activities to do.
Right.
And so one of those low-cost activities is hiking. So they would just be like, all right, kids, let's tire you out on these trails. And so they would take us hiking different places.
Whoa.
And things like that. So it was kind of a family thing. We would always go out in the woods together and hike or bike or just, fool around, kick a soccer ball around or try and find spiders, whatever popped into our brains. And then as I grew older, I was like, I need to pick a real career. I can't just play outside. So I ended up in college, I ended up majoring in communications. So journalism, lots of writing, because I do love to write. And so that's what I did. But over the summers, I spent every single summer working on an educational farm. So teaching kids about farm animals and vegetable gardens and taking them on nature hikes in the forest around the educational farm. And I was working for a park. It was actually part of the Hamilton County Park District up in Ohio. And so that's what I did every summer. And then when I graduated college and I was looking at I was applying for journalism jobs and things like that, trying to find my way, I realized I didn't really, it wasn't really jiving with me, you know? I started to realize that though I love to write, being a journalist, you're mostly driving to different news stories.
Okay.
You know, nowadays there's really not a lot of time for the really in-depth stories that I like to do. Things like that. Very stressful, very frantic. So I was like, well, I need a new plan.
Okay.
And I always loved working over the summers outside and with animals and kids, and so I just started looking for local parks that I could work at, and then I saw that Red Mountain needed someone with my exact experience working with goats, because I had become an accidental goat expert when I worked at the farm. I just became obsessed with goats before goats were a thing on the internet. I was like the weird girl that just loved goats.
Wow.
And so that's kind of how I got my position at Red Mountain, and I've been there ever since, and I love it, and it's an awesome place to work, and I learn something new every day. And for me, it's just been very important to work outside every day. That's a big part of my happiness, is to be able to really see the seasons change and get outside and hear the birds and just be out in nature.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you, of course, one of the things, people who may not know, but when it came to, going outside, and even when it came to the snakes, you all, Rachel, I was like, she's so brave. Like, you would be, I guess, like spraying stuff, and then you're like, oh, the snake had just passed me. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? Like, where does that go? But how do you do that?
Like, deal with the creepy crawlies?
Yes, I think I could, you talk about mosquitoes and the different stuff. It's kind of like I can handle those, even though they're irritating. But you're talking about a snake, for real? That takes courage, girl. So how does that work?
I think, you just get used to it. I think a lot of it is just understanding. The more research you do and the more you learn about the animals out there, you realize that you're the top dog, and they really don't want to mess with you.
Okay.
And, I've seen a lot of snakes out there. Unfortunately, I've had to pick a lot of ticks off of myself because I'm in that deep forest,
Yeah.
I've gotten, during the summertime, I probably have, 50 bug bites on me at any given moment. But those things don't bother me compared to the rewards that I get out of it.
Yeah.
And it's just understanding. Of course, I get freaked out if I see there's a copperhead a couple feet away. I'm like, oh no. But I just remain calm, and I just back away. And so far, it's all been good. You just have to understand that. The animal's usually just as scared, if not more scared, than you are.
Yeah.
You're pretty big,
compared to them. And that's what I guess, I used to hear you all talk about that, how, they're afraid of us. They're really just as afraid. So it's like they don't want drama either. They're just like, hey, I want to live. Do you?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
do we understand each
Right.
other?
Let's do this. Walk away, back away. But but that's awesome, to hear about that. And I don't know if that, just with being outside and kind of that whole natural resources element really led you into vegetarian living. So you want to kind of tap into that topic.
Sure.
But I wanted to know what, if that was an influence on you deciding to do that, and what, basically what made you become a vegetarian.
Yeah, so it definitely began right my first summer working on the farm, and it was the first time I was around a lot of farm animals. And growing up, I had always kind of thought about vegetarianism, but I thought it would be too hard for me to give up meat because I love food, and I love a lot of food that's meat. So I was like, oh no, that'd be too hard. But I remember I learned, I was watching Lamb Chop, the little show Lamb Chop, and then I realized a lamb chop was something you ate. I'm like, I can't eat lamb chop. What? But then, I grew up and I worked on this farm, and working with the farm animals, I just got such a close connection with them. And I was like, shoot, little baby cow, I cannot eat you anymore. You have guilted me.
Wow.
I cannot do this. You're just so cute. And so for me, it was just a personal thing. And being a vegetarian is also easier on the environment because if you're just eating plants, that uses up a lot fewer resources than, feeding a cow for all of its life, and then you eat the cow, that's an added step, and that really uses up a lot of resources as far as water and food, and all these animals are releasing some methane into the atmosphere and everything. So it's an environmentally friendly way to be. And I just kind of gradually, I started my as soon as I got out of the house for college, I became a vegetarian because my mom didn't want me. She's like, I'm not cooking anything special for you, like you have to do this on your own. So I was like, okay, I will, I make sure that I'll be healthy about it and everything. So it's been about 8 years that I've been a vegetarian. Wow. So quite a long time. And for me, I haven't really looked back. I just kind of eased into it. You can just replace your breakfast with something that's, like all your breakfasts are meat-free, and then you can do all your lunches are meat-free, and then you can work up to all your dinners are meat-free. And that's kind of what I did. And I really, at this point, I don't really crave any meat except for fried chicken. If I break, it will be fried chicken that gets me. But I think, a lot of Americans struggle with what's the best diet. I think there's a lot of conflicting messages out there, and being a vegetarian has worked for me, but it may not work for you, and that's totally fine. But I do think that everybody should try and include more vegetables in their diet. And one of the easy ways that I do that is soups and stews. Okay. There's a lot of really awesome recipes out there. Okay. Really simple, because all you do is you boil broth, and you chop up some vegetables and you dump some cans of beans in, and you've got a soup, Okay. And for me, that's a really easy way to get a lot of protein from beans and stuff like that. And it's just super simple and cheap and easy vegetarian meal. And I like doing that. And I also like, just hummus sandwiches. You just do hummus and some vegetables you like and some bread, and you're good to go.
Just do it. Yeah.
And I think, don't be afraid to try new things. I was really freaked out about tofu when I first saw it. I'm like, what is this stuff? I don't feel qualified to cook this. But we have Google now. Google can tell you how to do everything.
It's so funny. My mom says, Google it.
Yeah.
Really? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But so I hear you with that. It's just the, you could just kind of get out here and really explore.
Yeah.
And see some different things. Now, how are you as far as, do you have vitamins that you take, or do you just kind of know, have you just learned what you need? Because even for someone who's kind of easing into it and they want to do it, and even for me myself, I do want to do more vegetables. I don't necessarily think I want to do vegan. And I get it. It probably, like you said, it may work for other people. That's what they do. And I think it can get a little more expensive. I think maybe in doing vegan too, or you just having, I think it really is just taking the time to prepare the meals. But what kind of advice, as it relates to the making sure you're getting the right nutrients and you are getting the different vitamins that you need, what are some ways to really ease into it?
Yeah, so some of it is research. For instance, I believe it's kale has a ton of calcium, and I did not know that. I always thought dairy equals calcium.
Okay.
So as you do some research, you start to learn that a lot of the vegetables you're eating do provide a lot of nutrients. Or, for instance, beans and brown rice are a really good protein combination. You can get a lot of protein out of that.
Okay.
And I've never really had any problems with protein or feeling weak. Even when I did weightlifting and I was a vegetarian, I would increase my protein intake, just making sure I had, lots of nuts and beans and grains like quinoa that have a lot of protein. And I never, if I started to feel weak, I know my body was telling me something, so I up my protein, and then I'm good again. And I do take multivitamins and vitamin B12.
Okay.
And those, I think, help. If there's any deficiencies, they help kind of smooth that out. But for me, I've always felt very healthy while being a vegetarian. And if you're feeling really weak while you're being a vegetarian, probably means something's not right. A lot of people, what they'll do is they'll take meat out of their diet and they'll just replace it with more sugar, and they'll be like, they'll be like, okay, so I won't eat the pork chop, but I'll just grab a bowl of cereal real quick or something like that. So you just have to be careful. You want to add in vegetables and grains and, beans and fruits. You don't want to be adding in like Captain Crunch, to replace your meat.
Right.
So, there's a lot of meal plans out there. There's a lot of resources out there for people. And, you don't have to do it all at once.
Right.
You don't have to change your lifestyle overnight. You can just ease into it and see if it's for you.
Yeah. Now, I wanted to ask you, the multivitamin that you take, do you have a particular brand? Or
I just have like the woman's gummy vitamins.
Gotcha.
I don't
So
even know what brand. It's like Kirkland brand or whatever.
Right. But so that's pretty good then. Okay. Because I just wonder, they kind of have the one-a-days or different ones. But if it's something that you just do a multivitamin, the B, you said B12, so kind of with those. But, and I know, maybe different people may need different things, but that's a start, to at least see, like you said. And even thank you for giving insight to, if you're, like you said, if you're feeling weak, then kind of take it easy. It's okay to kind of ease into it, and you don't have to just do it all at once or feel like, you just have to have it all figured out, to become a vegetarian, or even, if somebody chooses to do the vegan living as well. Okay. Well, we're gonna segue into the topic as it relates to culture vibes, and it is it's really kind of pop culture and kind of topics that may be trending. And so one in particular, of course, with the weather, these hurricanes that, there's kind of like 3 going on all at one time. And I wanted to know if you give some insight to it, as it relates to what you do know about, even with the resources, with the weather. And I know you're not a meteorologist, but just kind of what do you feel like helped to create those atmospheres?
Yeah, so hurricanes, it's really interesting because I originally grew up in Ohio and I never thought about hurricanes, but my fiance Kurt is from the Bahamas, and so his whole life was hurricanes, preparing for them, knowing about them and everything. And now that I live in Alabama, I definitely worry about hurricanes a lot more, and now that I have, so many of my future family in the Bahamas, I worry about it a lot more. So where we've had Harvey and Irma and Maria, just wreaking havoc everywhere. It's really scary. And a lot of scientists are saying they believe that climate change has affected these hurricanes, and that's because hurricane season is when the water is warmest. Okay. So it's right around now at the end of summer, in September, the water's really warm, and that helps fuel the storm. And so with climate change, one of the effects is going to be that the water is warming. And so if there's a lot of warm water for a longer period of time, that could mean a longer hurricane season, more severe hurricanes, things like that. And this hurricane season has certainly, I think it's kind of woken a couple people up that we might, this might be happening. And of course, in the past, there's been many severe hurricanes. This one year isn't enough to conclusively prove that, climate change is causing new weather patterns or anything. But I think it has gotten some people thinking about it a little bit more, especially those in coastal areas. How often is my house going to flood? Is it worth it to live here anymore? Those kind of really difficult questions. So I think it's something that we need to keep an eye on. And especially if you live in a coastal area, you really have to think hard about it.
Yeah. So with it though, like you were saying with the climate changes, kind of with the warming, I know I guess in past years, like I would hear about it a lot, where they were saying, okay, this is what's going on, or different things that we're doing as far as with the ozone and just these different things. Is all of that kind of a combination, leading to things like this happening?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of different effects of climate change, and that's why I prefer the term climate change instead of global warming, because it's a lot more than just it's getting hot. It's a lot more. It's about the ocean currents are changing their pathways. They're going to different places. It's about if the permafrost in these formerly cold places melts, then you get a lot of different side effects. For instance, the mosquitoes can live up there in much greater numbers. Then you have animals that are being sucked to death by mosquitoes, and that affects the whole ecosystem. And if things that couldn't previously live in cold areas that are now a little bit warmer start migrating there, and then in the super hot areas you have animals fleeing those areas, and then other animals, so it's more than just it's going to be the thermostat's going up. It's about entire habitats are going to change. You know, the animals that live around you are going to change. The plants that can survive around you change. Where the ocean currents are going to change. It's just so much, and I can't even name all the different ways that our lives could possibly be affected by it.
Wow.
But if you want to, and I'm fairly uneducated about the topic. You know, I believe in climate change. I've watched An Inconvenient Truth, and I'm trying to educate myself.
Right.
You know, so if you're confused about it, or if you don't believe it's real, or or if you do think it's real but you want to learn more, you know, I just would really encourage you, there's a lot of great documentaries about it. You know, just Google it. You know, start trying to learn and educate yourself.
Okay. And now, I guess on a funny on that tip, when you said the comment, I saw a comment you made, you said, I hope it shows everyone that the importance of proper storm water management. If you would give a little bit.
Yeah. So that was me being a huge nerd. So I don't know if any of y'all have seen the new horror movie It by Stephen King. They've done the reboot with the scary clown that lives in the sewers. And I went and saw it, and I was scared to death because I don't like horror movies. But when I was watching, I was like, you know, most people in this audience haven't thought about sewers and where their water goes until they came in here and watched this movie where a scary clown lives in the sewers. And so that's another thing that's kind of tied into everything is you think about all these storms that are coming, all these hurricanes. The reason that flooding occurs is that your stormwater system can't handle, you know, the huge amount of rain that's coming at it. You know, it can only handle so much. It's set up for a rain shower, not for a hurricane. And even with rain showers, there's a lot of difficulties with stormwater management because we have this water that's just washing off of asphalt and concrete, and it's carrying with it, you know, oil from cars and pesticides and all this stuff. And all this stormwater, a lot of it ends up in our waterways to places, the waterways that we drink from, or our drinking water's from. And so a lot of people don't think about that, and there's a lot of trash clogging up the storm drains and everything. So it can be pretty scary, and we don't ever think about it, you know, unless you're watching the movie It.
Right. And then I'm thinking about it, right.
So it's just one of those things, you know, it's an everyday thing. You probably pass a storm drain, you know, every couple hundred feet as you're driving your car, but you don't ever think about it. And it's just one of those ways to be more conscious about your environment and how you're affecting your environment.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to, another culture vibe topic as it relates to the hashtag Take a Knee and Colin Kaepernick. And I wanted to get your thoughts on it, definitely being, you know, a Caucasian woman, and just being able to share your thoughts on it, and kind of even the whole SOB comment that the president made about the players. I just wanted to get your take on it.
Yeah, so it's definitely an interesting time we live in. I never expected that 2017 people would have to be demanding, you know, basic human rights and respect the way that they're having to, but that's our reality. And with Take a Knee, I fully support the players. I think it's necessary. Okay. And I think the main argument I've heard from mostly my white relatives, because most of my white friends are pretty liberal, but it's mostly been with my, you know, white relatives I've had these discussions. They feel frustrated because they're like, everything is so political now with Trump being president, because you know there's just so much happening with that. I just want to relax and just watch some football and not be political, and why do they have to make it political? And what I tried to explain to them is that this is the only platform that these men have, and they're taking one for the team, you know, in a way.
'Cause they are.
They have, you know, these men would not be risking their multi-million-dollar careers that they've risked their bodies, you know, they've risked concussions for, if it weren't something extremely important. And the amount, I mean, it's truly shocking to me every time when it's usually a black man, but black women as well, are killed by police, and the police officer gets off with absolutely no consequences.
Right. And
it's just so shocking to me, and it's horrifying to me, and it makes me feel like we haven't left the 1960s behind.
Right.
And I think it's important that awareness is brought to that, because a lot of people will not pay attention to something that doesn't affect them personally unless you shove it in your face at an NFL game, you know?
Right.
And that's
you
the
may
only
not
way.
like it, but this is the platform we have, you know? Yeah.
And as I was telling one of my relatives just yesterday, I was like, yeah, it's uncomfortable for you to have to, you know, watch them take a knee and have the game interrupted and everything, but it's more uncomfortable for them to worry about their son getting shot at a traffic stop. It's more uncomfortable for them to worry about their cousin, you know, who's like recovering in the hospital from an incident with the police. That's much more uncomfortable than having your entertainment interrupted.
Right.
So,
and I think even with you saying that, you know, and because if we could really get back to why it started, you know, Colin did it because of that, because there was so much going on. It was just, you know, it almost was like the hurricane situation. Like it was kind of one after the other. And then every time when it came to trial, it was kind of like, oh, you're going to have leave. You have to do a leave, but you get paid, you know, for doing it. Or then when the trial comes, you know, the police officer would get off. But that was what he used that platform for at the time. And so it wasn't a you know, kind of dealing with the flag, or it wasn't disrespecting veterans. It wasn't really doing that. And I think that because of the media, of course, and kind of the, you know, I say, you know, those who are in a position where they can help to control the narrative, where this is what you want to make it about, but that wasn't the case, you know. And it's so easy for, if you don't even know where it originated from, and you're just jumping on board like, oh, they're disrespectful, you know, it's, well, did you know why he did it in the first place? And some people just don't know, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and as far as, you know, disrespecting the flag or police officers, I think the American flag, the only reason our country is great today is because of the protests and the change that we have made. I think the most American thing, our most American quality, is freedom and the right to protest, the right to speak our minds. That's what the founding fathers were all about. And that's the reason why we are a great country today, and will hopefully become an even better one, is because people have the courage to make it a better country. So I don't think it's disrespecting the flag at all. I think it's honoring the flag and all the people that have fought before our generation to make America a better country. It's making sure we don't go backwards. It's making sure that we keep forging ahead. And, you know, I have a lot of friends that serve in the armed forces, and I have a lot of friends that are police officers as well. And none of them that I've talked to have a problem with it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, they understand. My friends that are officers, they know that to become a police officer, you don't have to pass a moral test. You just have to pass some written tests. Your training. Yeah. You know, if you can pass the test, you can become a police officer, and there's no guarantee that you're going to be a good person. That's good. They understand that, and the people I'm friends with, they're all amazing people, and they're great officers. But they understand. They're like, I've known some people that I've worked with that I would not trust, or want to work with. That's the same. Think about where you work. Do you work
anywhere
with
where you
Anywhere where you
Everyone
work.
is not, come on.
Everyone's not on the up and up. Just because they have a badge doesn't make them an angel.
I know the good cop. It may not necessarily be the case, or even just, like you said, a good person, period. I think everyone... That's something that, and the thing is, like, people always say, well, what about the cops that are good cops? Well, we're not talking about you then. Like, if you're you keep doing what you're doing. But I have heard too where they said, well, why won't you all speak up when the bad cop is doing whatever? Like, why, is it only the group of bad cops that are doing stuff like that? Well, someone good has to be around, and it's kind of I don't know if it's a, don't ask, don't, it's not necessarily don't ask, don't tell situation, but it is a code. It's kind of like an undercover code where even though I know you're doing some shady stuff, like, I'm not supposed to say anything about it because you're still a cop like me regardless. And that's what I don't really care for. So I think that's one of my things, but I'm like, okay, but yeah, well, I do want to move into the topic that relates to race relations, and it's kind of similar to that. And like I said, even from you speaking, in our conversations to me, you've been a person who's conscious and open-minded, definitely being, one of our white sisters. And so I respect that. And I wanted to know, though, during this racial climate, that we're in, because it seems like we came off of, this love, at least like trying to unite and bring the country together. And then we kind of move into this racially charged and just the tension period. What are some ways, at least, even 3 that you can think of that you believe would be helpful to move us towards the right path? And I know, racism is deeply rooted. So, I mean, I know it's not going to be overnight. What are some ways that you see, that we can help make a change?
Well, as a white person, the ways I can make a change kind of differ from the way that, my Black friends can make a change. In that, number one, I think it's important for me to kind of take a step back and listen to what my Black friends have to say and go by what, I might have an opinion about something, but when one of my Black friends explains like their view on it, I'm like, yeah, your opinion is the one that is the most valid here. So just really trying to listen to my Black friends and understand what they're going through as much as I can, because I haven't had those experiences, and I need to, be as empathetic as I can and really try to understand what y'all are going through.
Yeah.
And understand that I have white privilege and I have not experienced these things. And as much as I try to understand, there will always be that level of difference. And so I think just taking a step back and letting y'all take leadership of the movement and just supporting, I think is really important. I think the second thing, which is probably the hardest thing for me to do, is to speak up when I hear somebody speaking disrespectfully, or if somebody starts saying like, take a knee, they're interrupting my football game, like if they start talking like that, it's important for me, even though I hate conflict, to say, hey, wait a second, let's talk about this, and to be that person, right. And to be that person that's a party crasher.
Courage, yeah. It takes courage
to be a party crasher and to stand up to, my relatives or, someone, an acquaintance that just kind of said something. I was like, whoa, hold up. And I remember the first time I did that, I was in high school, and it was this high school boy that said something, I forget what he said, but it was not good. Right. And then all the girls that were around me, didn't say anything. I was like, I know y'all know that. I was like, you're just trying to impress this boy. Right. And I, kind of went at him, and I was like, and then, once I kind of took the step, everyone kind of was, nodding their heads, oh, yeah, Rachel's right. Right. Sometimes, people are afraid. They're afraid to rock the boat. They are. They're afraid to step out of their comfort zone, and so for me, I just draw a lot of inspiration from the heroes of the past who took so many more risks than I have to take, just to say, hey, I think I think that's up to me to kind of interrupt and explain and respectfully talk to people that may be racist or unintentionally racist, and try and correct that. Right. So that's the second thing. And I think the third thing to do is just the third thing I do is I kind of try and help in my own unique ways. Okay. So everybody has their own gifts that they can offer, and so I was just thinking about this because I just got done this weekend. I was doing it. I'm really good at swimming, and I was a lifeguard and everything. And when I was a lifeguard, we did this whole program because where I worked was a majority Black neighborhood, and a lot of Black folks can't swim, and that's mostly due to they weren't allowed in the pools, And so I was part of this program. And then when I came to Alabama this past year, I put up a Facebook status. I was like, listen, if any of my Black friends don't know how to swim, let me know, and I will teach you, because none of y'all should be drowning on my watch,
Look, unlike me. I didn't see that, but I probably need to get with you on some lessons.
Come over. So anyways, this weekend I was with one of my Black friends, and I was teaching her how to swim. It was her second lesson and everything. So that's just kind of how I'm trying to do my part, with my unique skills. So, and maybe other people have different unique skills, but just trying to do what I can, even if it's as simple as teaching someone how to swim.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's so awesome that you said that, because even one of my other sister friends, she was saying that she talked about that because she's a part of a group, Outdoor Afro. And so, but she was saying, you know, some of it we were talking in because she was in one of the episodes with the podcast, but she was saying that they would drain pools. Like when we would even touch it or step in or whatever, we would get in and oh my goodness, it's like we were going to drain the pool. You know, even Dorothy Dandridge, she stuck her toe. I mean, it was like, or was it, yeah, I think it was Dorothy or Josephine Baker. It was one of them where they stuck their toe in it and then they drained the whole pool, and it was at a hotel. It was like, you know, it's like, are you kidding me? Like, is this what we're doing? You know, off of a, you know, but that was the reason why. So it's amazing, you know, even like you said that's part of the reason, or even being afraid of being outdoors because someone was hung. So they would just say, don't get caught, you know, being late. So you're kind of like being outside or just really, and it should be for you to enjoy because it is peaceful. There's a peaceful atmosphere outside.
Earth. Yeah.
Right. You know, so why not? But there are reasons why some of us have just that it's maybe a phobia, I don't know, but just a consciousness of I don't want to do that, like you know, and this may be why it may be deep rooted in something else, but you know we don't even know like consciously like it's there, you know, it's kind of just in our psyche. So yeah, but absolutely. Okay, well, good stuff. Well, we're going to segue into the topic as it relates to engagement. So, I know that you recently got engaged within the last few months or so. And so I wanted to say congratulations once again. I know I got the opportunity to say and give you a big shout out when I saw the picture. I think I even shared it on mine. I was like,
yeah, you did.
I said, yeah. I was like, Rachel said it. But I wanted to know, you know, with it, you know, even with knowing, or just even with Kirk, like, how did you know that Kirk was the one?
Well, I was kind of lucky because it was a love at first sight thing for me, and just as soon as it was love at first Facebook picture. Actually, I was like Facebook stalking him. We were working together at the same internship, so we are all part of, you know, this Facebook group that was the interns, and then once I met him, I was still like, oh, I just love you so much. Or it was more like infatuated. You know, it wasn't real love, but it was just like, I'm infatuated with you. And then as I got to know him more and more, I just got more and more infatuated with like, oh, his personality is so great, and his kindness, and just like the different ways that, you know, he makes me laugh. And for me, it was just a faith thing. I just knew in my heart that, you know, this is the one, right? You know, at least right now, you know, this is the one. I should ask Kurt when he knew, because he was slower to catch on.
Look, he was just taking a little bit of his own time.
Yeah, but I think what both of us said, which is kind of unique, is how he knew I was the one, how I knew that he was the one, kind of in our brains and not just in our hearts, is both of us, before we ever met each other, we had a list of what we wanted our partner to be. And so, you know, very specific, you know, I want someone who wants to travel, and they really like to cook, and they like spicy food, and they, you know, and they're very kind, and you know, they want to do this. And I remember Kurt, in his list, he had like very specific things, like I want her to be able to just go from one social group to the next, like be very comfortable in any social situation. So just like very specific things like that. And then both of us, you know, everything on our list was checked off with the other person.
Wow.
And it was just this really crazy moment where like, ask and ye shall receive, you know. and I think that was really great. I think that's something that everybody should do, is if you're looking for someone, make a list. What are you looking for?
Well, what are some, you know, any pearls of wisdom you could share with a woman who she may be anxious to get married, or she's, you know, just looking to be married one day? And what would you share with her just in this moment?
I think what was helpful to me when I was single is think about the kind of person that you want to date. You can write that down if you want, and then look at that list and see, do you measure up to that list? If you want someone that's super attractive and athletic and they volunteer a lot, you know, like, are you athletic? Do you volunteer a lot? You know, like, are you, like, you spending time on your appearance, things like that? And then start looking at yourself and be like, okay, I can use a little bit of improvement in these areas. And that's a good way to kind of take your focus and work on yourself and build yourself up. And so that way, if you do meet the right person, you're ready, you know. And I would say, you know, focus on loving yourself and don't, you know, the right person is out there, you know. Don't be, I hate to say it, I'm like, don't be desperate, you know. Right. But, you know, don't think just because a man likes you that he deserves you, you know. Don't That's settle.
Yeah,
don't settle, because I think a lot of women will settle for something that isn't as good as it could be, because they're scared that there's not anything better out there. But there really is, and especially if you have a positive attitude and you're working on yourself, like, there is someone out there for you.
Right.
And I do have a pearl of wisdom for when you're in a relationship that's been really helpful for Kurt and I. And that is, we have a weekly check-in, and we call it the State of the Union. We joke about it.
Wow.
But it's just, we just talk about the past week and what went well, what didn't, both in our relationship and outside of our relationship at work and things like that. And we talk about, you know, if we had any arguments over the week, we kind of hash that out and say, like, hey, you know, I feel like we've been arguing a lot this week, and this is why, you know, and I think it's because I've been so stressed out, and, like, here's how we can help each other. And then we kind of, like, look forward to the week ahead and say, you know, I know this week's going to be really busy, you know, I'm not going to be around as much. Are you cool with that? You know, stuff like that. And that has just been the most helpful thing I've ever done for my relationship, because you're really taking time for your relationship every week, and you're addressing any issues before they've snowballed into something huge.
Wow. That's some good stuff. Wow. Yeah. I like that. State of the Union. We get together, you know, and I usually hear that's amazing to have that type of a conversation, because I hear a lot, even people, who mostly they're married, they talk about a date night. But, and not saying you can't have that too, but it is really cool to have that State of the Union type thing, where we can really communicate and really then, if it is something that you're feeling, to really get that off your chest. It's not just about having the good time together or we're going to do the romantic stuff. You know, let's really also
do the work. Yeah.
Do the work. And that's a good way to look at it. And so that's really awesome. Thank you for sharing that good stuff. Okay. Well, we're going to segue into the topic as it relates to family. And you've mentioned earlier, you know, that you grew up in a big family. And of course, my grandmother, that's something that she taught, you know, me and my family, it was definitely about faith, family, and community. And I learned my relationship with God, you know, as it relates to watching her. I learned how important family is. And then also in being a giver, those things, they all came with just watching her. But her biggest thing was family. You know, and how to link and bring, and she was kind of that pillar that brought different people together. You know, she was kind of the glue that helped us all come around. And so I wanted to know with you, you know, what does family mean to you, and why is it so important to you?
Yeah, and I've really been blessed with an amazing family, and that's something I'm so thankful for every day, because some people aren't blessed with an amazing family.
Right.
And, you know, it can be really difficult. And so I think family to me is definitely the most important thing in my life. And I'm so lucky. I have 4 younger siblings, 3 younger sisters, and 1 younger brother. And then I have my mom and my dad. And I'm just really grateful that we all have fun together, and we all can talk to each other, and we all help each other out. And, you know, my dad always says, you know, family will always be there for you, you know, no matter what happens, your family will always be there for you. And especially as you grow older, you start to understand a little bit more about the sacrifices that your parents made and things like that. You really appreciate all the work that goes into creating a family and a functioning family that likes to be together. And I've learned a lot of lessons that I'll pass down to, you know, my future children and things like that. And I think a lot of it is, you know, we always had dinner together every night. I think that was something that we did that was kind of different from a lot of families, is every single night we had dinner together.
Yeah,
we always did community service together, so we were always serving the community together, and I think those two things kind of really instilled in us a desire to help the world. All of my siblings want to go into careers where they're changing the world and helping the world. And I remember Kurt said, he's like, growing up, I always just wanted to make money. That's what my relatives always talked about, was business and how to make money. He's like, when I talk to your family, they're just always talking about how they're going to make the world a better place, and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And so I think having that mindset has been really great.
Okay. And so, when you think about what makes your family unique, what would you say makes your family unique, your immediate family?
Well, we're a bunch of nerds, that's for sure. We're very nerdy, dorky folk that like to read.
Okay.
We'll just all be in the living room just reading together.
Wow.
And we all love nature. We're all very tall. That's kind of unique. I'm the shortest one in my family at 5'9", so we're very tall, and so we definitely stick out. We're very awkward, but we love each other. So those are just kind of the fun facts about my family. We're just tall, awkward nerds that love each other.
Oh, good stuff. No, that's good. That's awesome. Cool. Well, we're going to segue into the topic as it relates to mother-daughter bonds. And so it is a series of questions that I'd like for you to answer. And what it does is it helps to encourage conversations between mothers and daughters. That's kind of part of it. And I believe it is also a good way to let our audience get to know you better. And so are you ready? All right. The first question is, what has your mother taught you about yourself?
I think my mom has taught me. I'll say one good thing and one bad thing that she's taught me. So about myself, your mom's kind of like your mirror, because all of your behaviors, she's the one that's correcting them or telling you good job. And so one behavior of mine that she corrected is I would always be very sarcastic.
Okay.
And when you have a teenager, sarcastic teenager, who could imagine? And she would always say, Rachel, it's not funny when you're sarcastic. I know you think it's funny, but you're really just being hurtful, And I'm like,
wow.
And it took me a while to get it, but I'm like, you know what, Mom? You were right about that one. And then another thing that she's kind of let me know, or that she's made me realize about myself, is that, I'm a very, I have a lot of self-esteem because of her, and I respect myself a lot, and that's because that's something I always saw in her.
Yeah.
And once I got out into the wider world, I realized I have a lot more self-esteem than a lot of the people around me, and I realized that was because of my mom.
Came from her. That's awesome. And how did your relationship with your mother prepare you to become the woman that you are today?
I think my mother, even though she has 5 kids, has always had time for each of us.
Wow.
And I never felt like that I didn't get enough attention. I would be trying to avoid the attention of my mom, And I think that she just prepared me with that love and that attention to my life. She just prepared me for everything. She didn't leave anything to chance. She made sure I knew how to go to the doctor and how to pay my bills and how to open a bank account, and how to make a budget. And she tried to teach me how to cook, but I wasn't really receptive. But now I know how to cook,
Yay, Mom.
Yeah,
Look.
so she just really was conscientious about teaching me those life skills, and also about teaching me to respect myself and to have a good opinion of myself. And she was always very proud of me. And I think those qualities have really helped me when I was just kind of 18. I'm on my own because I moved away from home to go to school. And I think those qualities that she taught me prepared me for life.
Okay. And I do want to ask you just a follow-up. When did she start teaching you those life skills?
So I think a lot of it came up in high school.
Okay.
When she was, because my mom's a first generation college student, so is my dad.
Okay.
And so they were very adamant that, you know, you got to go to college.
Okay.
And she's like, and when you're in college, you have to start, you're going to be on your own. So we got to start learning these things. So I think in high school is really, you know, I really started, you know, I got my first job and I was putting money in the bank account, you know, and she was teaching me all that. So really in high school, of course, there are all those little building blocks that you don't think about when you're growing up, but really in high school, she kind of doubled down on the life skills department, you know.
That you really need to know those things.
Yeah.
Because I often wonder, you know, when you're kind of in that middle school discovery phase, even if you're trying to teach certain things, it just depends. It's not really clicking like that. It's like, okay, I mean, you could do that.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, Mom, you'll be doing that for me forever.
Right. I can say that because I know. So, you know, even now, just that ninth grade, with my daughter, she's in the ninth grade, but it's really teaching her, you know, I'm like, you know, okay, when do we really start to where she's going to receive it? So that's why I'm asking, you know, kind of when you were just like,
it takes a while to click.
Yeah. When you receive it. So that's really good too. Cause it is, you just know, you know, those certain things, you need these basics, that the things that you need to do. So absolutely. So you have pretty much alluded to the fact that you are an avid reader. So the question is, what book most influenced you?
That's probably the hardest question tonight, Latasha, because I can't really pick one book, but I can pick. I'll pick one that I read when I was younger.
Okay.
It was a series of books by an author called Tamora Pierce, and they were fantasy novels,
Ooh.
and you know, they were all about like powerful women, like women warriors, and you know, like women magicians and things like that. And they all, and I didn't realize I was soaking this all up at the time, but in a lot of those books, you know, I would be reading them in 5th grade, and like things like women's rights weren't really on the forefront of my mind, but all these books were about women taking on roles that had previously been held by men, and I realized much later that these books had influenced my subconscious to such a degree because I was just not taking any nonsense that other girls around me were taking. I'm like, don't they know that, you know, Alana from this book would never have stood for this? And so I think in a funny way, you know, those childhood fantasy books had a lot of my most important female role models. Even though they were fictional, they had a model of behavior for me to follow.
Okay, all right. Well, what 3 qualities got you where you are today?
I would say hard work, for sure. That was something that was instilled in me by my parents at a very young age. They're German, and just work is fun and fun is work, and you never stop working. And I've got a little bit of that for sure.
Okay.
And so just working really hard at what you enjoy. You know, don't work, you know, you should try hard at whatever you do, but your life will have the most meaning if you find what you're passionate about, and then you're able to work really hard and put your energy towards that. I mean, that's a really satisfying feeling. I'm sure that you get that feeling, like working with Flora Pearl and seeing the results. You know, that's just the most satisfying thing.
Yeah, it is.
So I think working hard at, especially towards your dreams, is a really important quality. I think kindness would be the second quality, because I mean, if you're kind and you work hard, you can do whatever you want in life. You know, I don't understand people that are mean. I mean, obviously it's just they're not happy. They're not happy. I've already won because I'm happier.
I love
that. That's what I tell myself. But just being kind, you know, and everybody gets tired and frustrated, but just try and be kind all the time to everybody, even if it's the most ridiculous or awful person you've ever met. Like, either just don't engage or try and be kind, because people don't act like that unless they're hurting or they've been hurt, and or they're mentally ill, you know. And you just got to remember that, like, normal people don't act like this. You know, just be kind, and you never know, you might change their life forever just with a simple act of kindness. So
good stuff.
So I think kindness is also important, and I think my ability to, I think my sense of humor. I think my ability to laugh and have fun is really important and not take things too seriously. Because at a point, life, we need to enjoy it. We need to have a good time, and you just gotta laugh and be goofy.
Yeah.
I'm great at being goofy.
Look, I know. That's the good stuff. Well, what question do you wish more people would ask you?
That's a good question. I think in my everyday life, I wish more people would ask, what do you enjoy doing, instead of what do you do for work?
Okay.
Because I think Americans, our minds are like so work focused. We're like, what's your job? Like that defines you.
Yeah,
but that doesn't define you. That's just what you're doing to pay the bills, you know?
Keep the lights on.
Yeah, and so if I want to know about Latasha, I need to know like what she enjoys doing, not what she's doing from 9 to 5,
Right.
Like you have your own nonprofit, and you're very spiritual, and you love to you read books to improve yourself, and like those qualities about you are much more important.
Yeah, so that's good stuff. Well, what do you feel that every woman should try once in her lifetime?
That's a good question. I think every woman should try to travel somewhere by herself.
Okay.
So pick a place. Doesn't have to be far, but someplace that you've wanted to visit, whether it's the next town over or another country. Do that and go by yourself.
Wow.
And just, it's a scary thing, but just go do it. And
have you done that?
Yeah. And I'll say I did it halfway. I went to the Bahamas. I lived in the Bahamas for a year without Kurt. Okay. Or not for a year, for a summer. And I did that without Kurt because he was working. So I did know some of his relatives, but I spent a lot of time alone. And that was very different because I was experiencing his culture without him as a buffer. And just I was able to learn a lot about his childhood and things like that. And I was able to learn about different culture and test myself and like, am I brave enough to go to this by myself? Am I brave enough to, do what I want to do? So I think that was a really great thing.
Good stuff. Me. That's good. Now, what did you do for fun as a teenager?
I slept and I read books, and I spent a lot of time with my friends that I'm still very close to today. Okay. Just, a lot of the classic teenage girl movie nights and painting fingernails, stuff like that. And I mostly studied, if I'm really being honest. I was working pretty hard in school, so didn't have a lot of hobbies. I was just sleeping and reading and hanging out with my friends.
I love it. Well, who have been your role models, and what about them do you admire?
That's a great one. I think there's a lot of figures in history that have been really wonderful role models, and of course no role model is perfect, but I try to get different aspects of their personality and try and integrate them into my own. So I'd say some role models of mine would be I think the current Queen of England is kind of a role model because she's just so tough. She's just so tough. I mean, she's lived for so long, and she's been a woman, and she's navigated a lot of tricky situations, and I think her poise is really wonderful. I admire pretty much any woman in history that did something she wasn't supposed to do, Those
are the ones you remember.
Yeah. So I remember I was just reading an article about like one of the first women to attend medical school, and she was kicked out, and then she disguised herself as her brother and like went to medical school and all of that. And so I'm really inspired by women throughout history that had so much against them, and and stuff. And like Rosa Parks, she's another one because she was like, everyone's just thinks, oh, she just sat on a bus. No, the reason like she was chosen is because she had so many contacts in the white community, the black community. She was a pillar of of the entire town. And so when she sat down, it was a statement. And, she had, frantic white ladies. She hasn't finished my dress yet. She has to get out of jail,
Right.
And so she had those connections.
Right.
And she was such a savvy woman, and everyone around her was so savvy. And she, to this day, I mean, she's just so wonderful. And it's crazy to me to live in Birmingham where so many icons of the civil rights movements are, and their descendants live here. And like when I go to the YMCA, I overhear guys that marched with Dr. King, and it's just crazy. I feel like I'm surrounded by so much inspiration all the time living here.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, what would you say to a woman with a broken heart?
Oh, that's a good one. I say, cry it out, be good to yourself, and then watch. I forget which Medea it is, but it's a Medea clip, and it's like, I think if you Google it, it's like Medea, and it's like the tree story, and what she does is she talks about how everyone in your life you can fit them on a tree. So like some people in your life are like the leaves on the tree, and if you shake a little bit, they're just going to drop off.
Okay.
And then other people in your life are going to be like the branches of the tree, and like they seem like they're there for you, and maybe they're there for you for a certain amount of time when they're supposed to be, but you step out on them, and then they crack and they're gone. And then the other kind of person in your life are the roots of the tree. And you only need 2 or 3 really good roots for a tree to survive. And I remember I was just watching that whole clip, and I've shared it with my friends that have had breakups and stuff, and they all have loved it, because it just talks about, people come and go in your life, and that's okay. And she has another quote in it that's like, I would rather be by myself in the corner with a puppy and a goldfish than be with a man and I don't know why he's there,
Right, that's good.
So I always say, watch that video and just be kind to yourself and do things that you want to do. Okay. Especially like if you have a broken heart because somebody broke up with you or rejected you, do the things that remind you about why you're amazing.
That's good stuff. Good. What would a perfect day for you look like?
Ooh, so I get to sleep in a little bit, and it's a perfect autumn day outside, and I go for a little road trip through the weird small towns in Alabama, when the trees are all beautiful, and stop and get like a really good lunch somewhere, and then go and like set up a hammock and read a book outside, and then meet up with some good friends for like a potluck dinner, and then get like 11 hours of sleep.
Good stuff. What's the most important lesson that you've learned within the last year?
Within the last year, I think it's been that even though I can do everything, I shouldn't necessarily do everything, and it's kind of been a process of being a bit of a workaholic and realizing how that was affecting the other areas of my life, like myself and my health and my relationships, and kind of having to decide, do I work 65 hours a week? Is that the area of my life that's most important, or are other things most important? So I was trying to step back and try and realize that. So learning to take care of myself better has been the most important part.
Cool.
Do you mind if I? Sorry.
No.
Sorry.
Well, we're going to segue into the topic as it relates to community service. And so I wanted you to, tell of any ways that you're giving back to the community. Yeah,
so right now, I'm fortunate that my job allows me to give back to the community.
Okay.
I manage a lot of volunteer groups out there, and I've helped start a program where we bring Title I school students from Birmingham City Schools out to the park for a free field trip. And so seeing those kids able to experience nature and really enjoy themselves and have a good time has been very fulfilling for me, and I love doing that. And then outside of that, I manage a community garden, which is good for the community. There's a lot of kids, that take their first steps out there, it's a cool thing for the community. And then I also volunteer for the Sidewalk Film Festival, so I'm a screener for them because I really love supporting the local art scene.
Cool.
So I volunteer for Sidewalk, and I find myself just randomly volunteering for different events, usually environmental events. So I'll end up volunteering for, just for one day or whatever, like a fundraiser here or a pickup day there.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's how I give back right now.
Good stuff. Well, we're going to move into the faith segment, and it's an opportunity for you to share when your faith has been tested and how you came through it. And this is a way to be able to encourage someone in our audience.
Yeah, so I would say the most difficult time in my life was right after my freshman year in college, and I had just had several people close to me die, and I also survived the Tuscaloosa tornado, which completely destroyed Tuscaloosa. And for me, as a young person, I hadn't really faced any big challenges up until that point.
Okay.
Anything that really shook me.
Okay.
And so experiencing that really shook me, and I just saw how your life can change in an instant.
Right.
And it seemed very chaotic and random and not fair. And it seemed just extremely, it just seemed like the world was a really dark place. And for a while, I was in a really dark place. I was very depressed. And I did not feel that I would ever be happy again. It just didn't seem like that was possible anymore. I was like, now that I know how life really is, like, how can I ever feel happy again? I was just frantically searching, I was just searching for meaning. I was searching for answers and every way I could, and it just seemed like nothing. I was trying to solve all the problems of the world and all the mysteries of the world all at once, and being a 19-year-old girl, I couldn't do that. I wasn't, but no one's been able to do that. No one's been able to figure out life, and so for me, it was a gradual process of coming to terms with the fact I'll never have all the answers, and realizing there are so many good things and good people in life, and it's worth, life is beautiful and it can be terrible as well, but there are so many people out there that turn the terrible things into beautiful things.
Okay.
And that really, and it was kind of like one day I woke up and it wasn't that bad anymore. And it just got better and better, and now I am just so thankful to be in the place that I'm at, and I think focusing on gratitude for what I do have is really helpful, and focusing on surrounding myself with positive people is really helpful, and also just saying, I don't have all the answers, and I won't have all the answers about life and death and fairness and why does God let this happen and all those things, and I just have to realize that I'm just a tiny human speck, and I probably wouldn't even understand those answers if I got them.
If you got them. That's a good way to look at it. Wow, good stuff. Okay, well, we're going to move into our closing segment. It's called Matters of the Heart Moment. And the first question is, if you had the opportunity to speak to your 4-year-old self, what would you say to her?
Say, I love you. You're doing great. Just learned how to draw a circle. I would say to my 4-year-old self is, I would encourage her to be brave, to dream big, and that she has way more power and knowledge than she thinks that she has.
That's good.
And I would just give her a big hug and make her feel loved and say, go get 'em, girl.
Good stuff. Well, who inspires you?
I'm lucky that I have a lot of people in my life. I think my fiance Kurt inspires me every day because he has some strengths that I don't.
Okay.
Like his patience with people. He's so patient to people that don't deserve his patience.
Wow.
And I really learn a lot from that. How he treats everyone, his kindness to people, especially when they don't deserve his kindness. I've really learned from a lot. And I think my mom has inspired me to be less selfish because she's the most self-sacrificing woman I've ever known. I mean, she has 5 children. She didn't have a lot of time for her life, you know?
Yes.
She didn't have a lot of time even just sit down and like take a moment. And that level of dedication to people outside of herself is just amazing to me, especially now as an adult. That I understand how difficult life is, and that she had to pay bills and buy the groceries and do all this, and she worked part-time, and she still managed to give us all that love and affection. Those are 2 people in my life that really inspire me on a daily basis.
Okay. And what is the best pearls of wisdom you've ever received?
Pearls of wisdom. I would say it's, if you really want it, never give up. Even if it's a crazy idea, it's eventually going to happen. If you never give up, you might be 86 when it happens.
Okay.
But don't give up. If you really want it, don't give up.
Okay. You have any last minute comments?
I would just like to thank you for inviting me over, and I love what you're doing, and I think it's so important. And I would just encourage everyone to keep listening and keep trying to improve yourselves and your communities and your families. And just good job, Latasha. And I love talking with you.
You too. I thank you so much for, being with us today and definitely sharing with us. And thank you for your kind words. I appreciate them very much. They're really encouraging. So thank you. It's good to hear that, definitely from people that that know you and spend time with you, and so they know your heart, So thank you. Awesome. And our goal at the Flora Pearl Foundation is to always be a blessing to all of those that we come in contact with by operating with a spirit of excellence. I want to thank you all so much for listening today, and you can visit our website at www.florapearlfoundation.org. We look forward to spending time with you all each week, and we will talk to you soon.